On today's tutorial, I want to talk about sports suppliers, and you can find this slide in the keynote presentation on page 48. So on this page you can see differentiation in different supplier categories. The first one are the suppliers of sport goods, and of course I have to mention that the categorization of sports suppliers is a very difficult task, because the landscape of suppliers is very diverse, and this approach of Watzak 2004 is a very good approach, a recommendable approach in my opinion. And when we take a look at this first category, we can see that there are producers of investment goods in sports, so companies like builders of sport facilities, for example, so companies that produce goods that are invested in the following process of gaining value on the sport market. So this could be a sports facility, or when you think of equipment for a fitness gym, is also an investment good. Then we have the consumer good producers, so goods that are consumed in private households. So this could be everything like sports equipment, or even sportswear, or also sport nutrition. So the consumer is at the end of the chain and consumes these goods. All these goods that we can see here are not movable. The first category is immovable, so a sport facility is not movable. But the consumer goods are movable, of course. So you can move in equipment or sportwear or sport nutrition. But for consumer goods, it's necessary to know that yes, the individual person or the private person is the consumer at the end of the chain. So when we think of the category in the middle, which is, in my opinion, the main category, supplier of sports services, we need to distinguish between the spectator sport providers and the participant sports providers. So when you are actively involved into the product, so when you're doing sports in a sports club or for a sport association, we would call these suppliers of sports services. But we should also take a look at the commercial part of the market, like gyms and, for example, travel agencies. When you think of separate sport journeys and trips, these companies also appear as suppliers of sport services. And companies as well, normal companies, could be suppliers of sports services. One of the biggest sport clubs in Germany, the SG Stern, belongs to Daimler, and we could call that corporate sport programs. They have different locations all over the country and around about 38,000 members in Germany. On the bottom, we should include the spectator sport service suppliers, and we can again bring the clubs to the board and the associations. When you think of the German Football Association or the UEFA or the FIFA, they are sports service suppliers in the field of spectator sport. So associations, again, a very important supplier in this regard are the sports leagues, like the DFL. And in this context, we have a very interesting situation because it's a kind of co-opetition that takes place in sport leagues. Co-opetition, because in this construct of a sport league, the sports clubs have to cooperate together, but they're also competitors against each other. And this is a combination of both words, cooperation on the one hand and competition on the other hand. So it's kind of co-opetition that takes place in sports leagues. So first section, suppliers of sport goods. Second section, supplier of sports services. And the third sections are the suppliers of indirect services. Oh, sorry. I want to take this one. So that's correct now. Supplier of indirect services, which means all institutions, entities, and organizations coming from subsequent markets that are placed between the demander and the direct service suppliers. For example, sports media, or even sports retail stores, or educational institutions like universities and academies belong to this section. And I will finish up with etc. here, because the indirect services section is also very diverse in itself, and the primary players in this regard are sports media, sports retail stores, educational institutions, sponsors, hospitality services, and everything that is connected to the suppliers of sports services in the middle. So many thanks for your attention. See you next time.